Buenos días, mis estudiantes. In this lesson, we are going to be talking about the imperfect subjunctive. So it's going to sound really crazy and in-depth, but with a brief review of the present subjunctive and kind of comparing it to what you already know with the present subjunctive, it makes it a little bit easier. So we're going to get into it here. So I want to just briefly review the present subjunctive. So in Spanish, when you want to talk about the following kinds of things, you have to use the subjunctive conjugations of the verb. So wishes, emotions, impersonal expressions, recommendations, doubt, desire, denial, ojalá. We talked about it a little bit differently last year, but verbs of hope, verbs of doubt, ojalá, those were the ways we kind of talked about it, but those are the situations. You want something to happen, but you don't know if it's going to happen. That gets the subjunctive. So remember, just this as a brief review of the present subjunctive, when you form it, you have to put the verb in the first person present tense form, and then the AR verbs take the ER-IR present tense endings, and then the ER-IR verbs take the AR present tense endings. So tener becomes tengo, becomes tenga. Escribir becomes escribo, becomes escriba. Hablar becomes hablo, becomes hable. And poner becomes pongo, becomes ponga. So that's the subjunctive. So, for example, ojalá que él tenga un buen día. I hope he has a good day. You don't know if he will, but you hope that he will, and so it gets the subjunctive tenga. Espero que ella me dé una buena nota. I hope she gives me a good grade. Es bueno que ellas estudien antes del examen. It's good that they study before the test. That's that impersonal expression that gets the subjunctive. Sugiero que ella coma antes de empezar el viaje. So that's my suggestion. I think she should eat before she begins the journey, but I don't know if she will, so it gets the subjunctive. So the imperfect subjunctive, or you can kind of think of it as past subjunctive versus present subjunctive, but the imperfect subjunctive is used in all the same situations. So wishes, emotions, impersonal expressions, recommendations, desires, ojalá, all the same situations. It's just when those wishes and emotions are expressed in the past tense. So we're going to see some examples of that in a little bit. But first, I want to talk about, first of all, how do you form the imperfect subjunctive? So you just follow 3 steps to do it. So 1, you put the verb into the third person plural preterite form. So the preterite form of ellos, ellas, ustedes. You take off the RON ending, and then you add the imperfect subjunctive endings. So what are the imperfect subjunctive endings? Ra, ras, ra, ramos, rais, ran. And there's a little accent here because the nosotros form places an accent on the vowel just before that ending. There's always an accent there. And fortunately, these are the same endings for the AR, ER, and IR verbs. So you don't have to remember different endings for an AR versus an ER verb. So those are the imperfect subjunctive endings. So then what does it look like? So some examples. Tomar in the preterite, tomaron, so they took. That's your starting point. And then you take off the RON and you add these endings to it. So it becomes tomara, tomaras, tomara, tomáramos. Remember the accent? Tomares, tomaron, tomaran. And this can get a little, you got to be careful of your pronunciation because tomaron, tomaran. There's the very subtle difference, but it's the difference between they took and the subjunctive that they should have taken. Another example here is saber. The preterite is supieron, and there should be an I there. I'm sorry that is a typo. So it should be supieron, supieron, and it becomes supiera, 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 supiéramos, supierais, supieran. So those are imperfect subjunctives. So let's talk about when you use it. How do you know when you're supposed to use it? So first of all, you got to remember that formula for creating subjunctive sentences. We worked a lot on it last year. You have your subject 1 plus your subjunctive triggering verb. So whether that's your verb of hope, your verb of desire, your verb of doubt, whatever that is. And then the subjunctive triggering K. and then you have a second subject, and then the verb that follows that second subject is in the subjunctive, and then you can add to the rest of your sentence. So for example, subject 1, yo. The subjunctive triggering verb is quiero. It's a verb of want, verb of desire. Your subjunctive triggering que, yo quiero que. Your second subject, tú. And then your second verb, which gets the subjunctive, hagas. And then you can finish the sentence, tu tarea. So, yo quiero que tú hagas tu tarea. I want you to do your homework. So for the past subjunctive, if this subjunctive triggering verb is in the past tense, then this subjunctive verb after the K is, you put it in the imperfect subjunctive. So we'll take a look at some examples. So first of all, this is present subjunctive. El profesor de música quiere que nosotros tomemos parte en el coro. So that's what you learned last year. Well, so let's say you want to talk about something in the past tense, like the teacher wanted. So it becomes el profesor de música quería que nosotros tomáramos parte en el coro. The music teacher wanted us to take part in the choir. So it's the exact same setup. It's the exact same formula. It's just if this verb happens to be in the past tense, then this verb also needs to be in the past subjunctive. So a couple other examples here. Yo dudo que alguien sepa la respuesta correcta. So we have our verb of doubt, our subjunctive triggering que, our second subject, and then our subjunctive verb. Well, so if we want to put dudo in the past tense, I doubted that anyone knew the correct response. Yo dudaba que alguien supiera la respuesta correcta. And then just a couple more sentences. Ella espera que no se nos olvide la información. She hopes that we don't forget the information. If we want to put esperar, we want to talk about that in the past tense. Ella esperaba. Well, then this needs to be in the past subjunctive. Ella esperaba que no se nos olvidara la información. An impersonal expression. Es bueno que los estudiantes jueguen un poco. It's good that the students play a little. And we want to say maybe it was good. Era bueno que los estudiantes jugaran un poco. Let's say, sugerir. It's something I suggested in the past. Sugiero que Pedro coma antes del viaje. I suggest that Pedro eats before the trip. If I want to talk about, well, it's something I suggested in the past, then this becomes imperfect subjunctive. Sugería que Pedro comiera antes del viaje. And so you'll notice that all of these, it's the exact same formula that you already know from present subjunctive. It's just you're translating those two verbs and you're putting them both in the past tense.